Hey, mathematicians. All right, so you guys are working on percentages. And the next lesson here is percentages in geography. So it's just doing the same stuff we've been doing. We're just going to apply it now to a map of the United States, which is exciting. Okay, so let's do a little warm up here. Okay, so try and think of the answer before I say it, and then I'll answer for you here. So what percent is 100 of 100? And hopefully that was a pretty quick 100%. Make sure you had percent at the end of that. So, yeah, you knew that, didn't you, Sarah? So 100 out of 100, right, is going to be 100%. And we know that percent, remember we learned, means out of 100. All right, so what percent is half of 100? Well, let's think about that. So half of 100 is 50. So 50 out of 100 would be 50%. Yay! All right, what percent is a fourth of 100? So we have to kind of work a little bit harder at that. Did you know the answer? What was it? Very good. Okay, so if we take 100 and we divide it into 4 equal pieces, kind of think money a little bit here because that's going to help. That means that you have 25 out of 100, which is 25%. So remember, anytime that's out of 100, that's your percentage. Okay, now they want to know that last one there. So the fourth of 100, what is that as a fraction? Well, it is 25 out of 100. Or we know that that would mean that basically you had 4 quarters, right? 25, 50, 75, 100 to make that full 100. And so 1 out of those 4 would be 1/4. Okay? All right, if you're with me so far, let's go ahead and try the next ones here, okay? So what percent is 50 out of 50? And so the keen eye here, did you know it's there? 50 out of 50? Very good. 100%. Okay. So again, it's all of it, right? Which we know 100% is all of it. We also know 100% is 100 out of 100. Do some comparisons here. Can you see where 50 out of 50 would be the same as 100 out of 100? Well, yeah, because two 50s make 100. And so two 50s would again be 100 out of 100. All right, so what percent is half of 50? Oh, yeah, very good. And so again, we have 50% here, right? All right, now if you're looking at that and you're like, okay, I might be a little confused, pause and think for a second. All right, so half of 50 is 25, right? So we're talking about 25 out of 50. And you're saying, well, hold on a second, because that's not out of 100, so that's not a percentage yet. And you're right. So let's take it up to a percentage, because if it's out of 50, well, two 50s make 100, right? So 50 plus 50 makes 100. 25 plus 25 makes 50. So 50 out of 100 would be the same as 25 out of 50. Woohoo! All right, so then what is half of 50? We just answered that. Is it 25? Should there be a percentage there? What do you think, Sarah? Should there be a percentage? No, of course not, because they weren't asking for a percentage there. They're just simply asking what is half of 50. All right, all right. If you're hanging with me, let's try this next set here. Oh, hold on, Sarah. There we go. All right, so this next set has us looking at a couple more percentages out of 50. We're going to keep employing that trick that two 50s make 100. Okay, so ask what percent is 10 of 50. Okay, so 10 out of 50, well, that's not out of 100, but I can scale it up to out of 100 because 50 plus 50 is 100. So I'm going to do 10 plus 10, which is 20. So 10 out of 50 must be the same as 20 out of 100, which would mean it is 20%. Okay. All right, so then what fraction is 10 out of 50? Well, that we know is 10 over 50, right? Like so. Now, is there another way to write that, though? Well, if you think of it, if you've got your abacus with you, you can go ahead and put it on there. So if you put 10 on your abacus and then kind of cover up half your abacus, only look at 50 of the b's, you'll notice that 10 of 50 out of 50 is 1 out of 5 groups. So you could also write it as 1/5. Oh, which makes sense, because if you remember, once upon a time, when we were first learning percentages, 1/5 was 20%, because if you take 100 and you divide it into 5 pieces, then each of those pieces is 20. So it's 20%. All right, so then 20 out of 50. Well, that's a great question. So let's kind of continue. Sarah, it's a good question. I like 20 out of 50. Yeah, let's think about it. All right, so 20 out of 50. So we can kind of use the same mind process, right? So two 50s make 100, right? So then two 20s would make 40. So 20 out of 50 must be the same as 40 out of 100. Ah, so this would have to be 40%. That's kind of cool, right? That makes sense to me. Okay. If you are a person who sees it on the abacus and you want to do this on the abacus real quick, all you got to do is put in 20, cover up half the abacus, so it's 20 out of 50. Sarah? So that's 20 out of 50. And then think about, okay, I have to make basically double that amount to get it to fill the whole abacus, which is 100 beads. So when you uncover half the abacus and now you see all 100 beads, you've doubled the amount of beads that are there, so you also have to double the amount of beads that you're setting apart. So you go up from 20 to 40. Okay? All right, so then what fraction is 20 out of 50? Well, it's 20 over 50. Okay, but we could also think of it as, well, you know, if you do it on your abacus, you've got, 20 beads there and you cover up half your abacus, so you're just looking at 50 beads. Well, that's 2 out of 5 groups there of 10, and so this would be the same as 2/5. Okay, and that also jives with our understanding from earlier, because if you look at this, 1/5 plus 1/5 should be 2/5. So 20 plus 20 is 40. Ah, beautiful. All right, so let's continue on. So then what percent of 30 is 30 of 50? Well, by now you might have a conjecture based off of your pattern that you're seeing here. Or we can go through that same thought process. Okay, so it's 30 out of 50. I recognize that that's not 100 yet, so I have to bring it up to 100. Well, two 50s make 100, so two 30s make 60, so it'd be 60 out of 100, which would be 60%. Or you could have seen, well, we're going 20, 40, 60. And so then what fraction do you think 30 of 50 is? Ah, yes, you would be correct. It would be 30 out of 50, or 3 out of 5 tens, which would be 3/5. All right, so then what percent is 40 out of 50? Okay, well, two 50s make 100, so two 40s make 80, so 80%, because that's 80 out of 100. And then that fraction would be 80 out of 100, 40 out of 50, or 4 out of 5 tens, which would be that simplest fraction there. Okay, all right, so hopefully 2 thumbs up, we're doing good. And so let's go ahead and take a look at these percentages dealing with geography. And there's a very good reason why we did a whole bunch of warming up there with our 50s, because as you take a look here at the map of the United States, you will notice we have a ton of lovely states, and should you add them up, you would come up with, oh, how lovely, 50 states. Okay, so we're going to be doing some problems where you're finding what percent of states have some certain characteristic. Okay, so let's go ahead and try the first one on your worksheet there. So first of all, I asked how many states are there altogether. Okay, there's 50 states. Let's do this as a practice question, actually. I don't think this one's on your worksheet. It says, how many states border Illinois? So when they say border, they mean like actually physically touch Illinois. So here's Illinois. So I see Wisconsin, Iowa, Missouri, looks like Kentucky touches it down here. Indiana, I would not count Michigan. Michigan does not actually touch it. And I think that's it. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 states that border Illinois. Okay. All right. So if I were to ask what percentage of the 50 states border Illinois, well, we know that would be 5 out of 50, right? But they want the percentage. Well, let's think this through. So just kind of like we did in the warm-up up there. So 50 plus 50 would get me up to 100, which is what a percentage is out of 100. So 5 plus 5 would mean this is 10%. Excellent. So 10% of the states border Illinois. All right, let's jump onto your worksheet then here, okay? So your worksheet, the first question asks, what percentage of the state's names start with the letter M? Okay, so let's scroll up here. All right, we need states that start with M. I see Montana, Minnesota, Missouri, Maine, Massachusetts, Maryland. I don't see any others. Do you see any others that start with, oh, Michigan. Whoop, we can't forget Michigan. All right, now I think we've got them all. So how many is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Why do I feel like I'm missing one? Is there an eighth one? Mississippi. Haha. Sneaky one down there at the bottom. All right, so there's 8 states. Okay, so there's 8 out of 100, or 8 out of 50. Okay, so if we were to make that come up to 100, 50 plus 50 would be 100, which means 8 plus 8 would be 16. So it'd be 16 out of 100, or 16% for the percentage of states whose names start with the letter N. Cool. All right, let's do the same thing now with N. So what percentage of the states' names start with N? Are you doing your letters too, Sarah? Come here, babe. Let's turn that down a bit. All right, so states that start with N, we've got Nevada, New Mexico, Nebraska, North Dakota, North Carolina, New Jersey, New Hampshire. That was kind of a crazy little few there. All right, so I think that's all of them. And New York. There we go. Now we got them all. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, that's convenient. All right, so we're looking at 8 out of 50 again, because there's 8 states that start with the letter N, and they want to know of all of the states, so that's 8 out of 50, which we, again, will scale up. So, okay, so 50 plus 50 will get me to 100, so that means 8 plus 8 is 16. So I have 16% of my states that start with the letter N. Now, this is kind of a cool question here on the end. It says, what percentage of the names starting with N have 2 words? So we have to be careful what this is out of. So we want to know just of the ones that start with N, how many of those have 2 words in them? So that would be North Dakota, New Mexico, North Carolina, New York, New Jersey, and New Hampshire. So that's 6 out of just those 8 states that start with the letter N. So they're asking for 6 out of 8. Ooh, okay, let's think about this one for a second, because if we try to take 8 up to 100, we're going to have some issues doing that, right? Because I can't multiply 8 by anything to get it to equal 100 exactly. Okay, so let me maybe try it a different way. I think 6 out of the 8 is an equivalent fraction to something that's a little bit smaller. Think of it, you know, if you have eighths, 2 eighths make a fourth, right? If you need to pull out your fraction strips, do that. So if 2 eighths make a fourth and I've got 6 of them, that means I've got 3 fourths and 6 eighths. Ooh, 3 fourths. Okay, so fourths, that I can take up to 100, because 4 times 25, right, equals 100. All right, so then 3 times 25, or 3 25s, I can even count up 25, 50, 75. Aha, so this would have to be 75 out of 100, which would be 75%. Okay, so hopefully that gets you going in the right direction here with the rest of your worksheet. Keep on working. Definitely feel free to ask questions as you are still learning this and kind of getting the hang of it, but I think you've got some good tools in your toolbox as you are working these through. And then after you're done with percentages and geography, there's just a couple of word problems to do after that kind of ask, you know, about using percentages to do like discounts and things like that. And again, the knowledge that you have built here should be very useful to you there. All right, so best of luck, and I will hopefully see you all on Wednesday.